You walk through life unaware that something immeasurable lies dormant within you. Not a myth, not a metaphor, an actual power, invisible but absolute. And every day more people forget it. Not because they are weak or lost, but because they've been told to look outside instead of within. You don't need to chase power. You are power, waiting to be awakened, directed, and realized. This is not a motivational idea dressed in soft words. It is the very blueprint of how your world takes shape. Everything you desire, resist, or attract is magnetized by the energy of your thought. It begins in silence, in imagination, and it manifests through form. Your mind is not a passive container, but a radiant center of operation. Once you understand how to wield it, reality no longer happens to you. You begin to happen to reality. Beneath the surface of every moment, there is a silent current flowing. This current does not roar or demand your attention. It whispers. And yet, it is the force that bends the arc of your life. That force is thought. Most people, rushing through the noise of their lives, never realize that every condition they face began not with action or coincidence, but in the hidden workshop of the mind. Thought, undetected, sets the trajectory long before circumstances appear. Just like the invisible roots of a tree dictate the direction in which its branches grow, your inner mental pictures shape the contour of your future. The invisible power housed in your own mind is neither fantasy nor fleeting inspiration. It is the very substance from which your experiences are formed. In the same way an architect uses blueprints to manifest a building, you use mental pictures to summon the form of your desires. This is not metaphorical, it is mechanical. Every thought is a mold, and the universe, intelligent, responsive, and impartial, pours its raw substance into whatever mold you consistently offer it. You think, and through that thought you give direction to life's ever-flowing potential. Yet, how often do you pause to consider what picture you are projecting? You walk through your days caught in reactions, but rarely do you inspect the lens through which your life is shaped. If your prevailing thoughts are rushed, anxious, or grounded in fear, the result cannot deviate. The world answers not what you want, but what you affirm, silently and repeatedly. It answers not your spoken wishes, but your consistent inner patterns. To ignore this is to relinquish the most powerful tool you possess. Visualization, then, is not a passive daydreaming, but a deliberate engagement with the creative source within. It is the practice of holding the image of your desire steadily, not with strain or force, but with clarity and calm certainty. Like a lantern projecting an image onto the wall, your mind projects into the medium of reality. However, just as the lamp must have a steady light behind the slide to produce a clear picture, your visualizations require a stable will and unwavering belief. Flickering doubt is like a shifting light. It distorts the image. This is where most fail, not in the power of the image itself, but in the steadiness with which they hold it. Mental energy is magnetic, and its pull grows stronger with repetition and emotional resonance. But this law will not argue with you. If your images are fragmented, if your desires are contradicted by your doubts, the result is simply incoherence. You are the central operator, and your mind, when aligned with belief, is the conduit through which the creative force of the universe moves. Realizing this is the first step toward conscious mastery of your invisible power. The subtle workings of thought remain a mystery to many, not because the mechanics are hidden, but because few take the time to truly observe their inner landscape. Mental energy is not simply an abstract concept. It is the very substance from which all form is shaped. Like the lens of a magic lantern, your mind holds the slide, the mental image, and through the focused light of your will, that image is projected onto the screen of your life. Without a steady flame behind it, even the clearest slide remains in darkness. In the same way, a desire without belief or consistency fades into obscurity, never given the energy required for manifestation. Every thought forms a mold, and into this mold, the formless substance of universal life begins to pour. There is no hesitation in this process. It does not question whether the mold is worthy or useful. It merely obeys the impression. When you visualize with clarity and infuse that vision with conviction, the universal substance responds instantly. The world as you know it becomes a mirror, an echo of the internal projections sent out from your mind. This is not philosophy, it is law. The world you navigate is sculpted by invisible thoughts, just as wind carves canyons over centuries, quiet, unseen, yet absolute. To work with this law is not to bend it with effort, but to align with it through understanding. Mental projection does not require strain or tension. In fact, effort born of anxiety often disrupts the flow. Visualization thrives in a relaxed and confident state. The moment you believe your inner vision must be forced into existence, you unknowingly introduce resistance, and resistance weakens the light of your will, blurring the image you hope to project. Steadiness, not urgency, is the silent force behind successful creation. Consider a parable. A man once built a house in his mind, brick by brick, furnishing each room with joy, painting each wall with ease. He never rushed to complete it, never fretted over how it would appear. One day, a friend asked where he had found such a home, and he replied, "I lived in it long before I stepped inside." Such is the art of mental projection. It is not something you wait to see. It is something you faithfully dwell within until the outer world simply agrees. Every image you hold becomes a living seed, absorbing energy, growing roots. The light you shine on it with your attention determines how quickly it germinates. If you constantly shift your focus, changing your image, doubting its power, you become like the gardener who plants and uproots the same seed each day, hoping for growth without giving it the chance to begin. Mental projection demands consistency, not repetition. It needs the soil of faith and the water of enthusiasm to thrive. When you allow your mind to become a fertile ground for one clear image, the universal force moves without confusion. There is no external condition, no person, and no event that can obstruct this inward process unless given permission. The universe does not require a specific channel or method to deliver your manifestation. Its operation is deductive, not bound by logic or past experience. It simply follows the essence of the direction you give it. In this way, your mind becomes a quiet conductor of power, a sacred space where invisible forms await expression. The projection of your mental energy, once understood, becomes not just a method, but a mastery. Faith is more than a feeling or a fragile hope clutched in desperation. It is the invisible current that gives momentum to every mental image you hold. Without it, thought remains inert, suspended in abstraction, never quite reaching the realm of form. But with it, even the faintest idea can move mountains. Faith draws to itself the very conditions required for its fulfillment. It magnetizes thought and pulls unseen forces into motion, forming connections, circumstances, and outcomes that logic alone could never orchestrate. Faith, then, is not an accessory to mental creation. It is the engine. Observe carefully the quality of belief behind your desires. Many claim to want a thing, but secretly expect its delay or denial. That contradiction weakens the field. Like a magnet trying to pull with one pole while repelling with the other, the result is stagnation. Faith must be undivided, not a flickering candle in a room of doubt. It must be felt in the body, seen in the mind, and lived as if the result is already breathing next to you. Belief is not passive, it is a commanding force. And when it is consistent, it begins to gather proof around it, like iron filings to a magnet, affirming itself with increasing power. A businessman, with no change in his environment, doubled his income simply by seeing himself working in expansion every morning. His belief did not wait for the numbers to change, it preceded them. That is the law. Belief leads, evidence follows. Faith is not blind, it is sight beyond appearances. It looks at the bare soil and sees the orchard. It hears silence and knows that music is possible. When you carry this kind of inner certainty, your desires no longer chase after the world begins to circle you. Even the body responds to faith. Joy floods the cells. Peace organizes the heartbeat. Energy flows more freely when the mind no longer tugs against its own intentions. Faith lifts the heaviness that doubt places on the chest and allows space for the invisible to become visible. In this state, your thoughts no longer just request, they claim. They do not beg, they declare. There is a difference between hoping for change and assuming change has already begun. One waits on the threshold, the other walks straight through the door. To live in faith is to live as though the universe is your collaborator, not your judge. It is to speak the word of your vision and let the echo return in form. The magnetic quality of faith is subtle, yet irresistible. It works in stillness, not in noise. It begins in the quiet conviction that what you've imagined is already forming, and if you do not disrupt its progress, it must arrive. Faith is not an escape from reality, it is an authoring of it. The story begins in the belief. What follows is simply the reading aloud of what has already been written. There is an intelligence woven through every blade of grass, every gust of wind, every grain of dust suspended in sunlight. It listens, not with ears but with vibration, and responds not to force, but to direction. The mind, when rightly attuned, becomes a tuning fork to which all of nature subtly harmonizes. Nothing in nature resists your command when the command arises from a place of inner order. The flowers, the rivers, the trees, they all belong to the same living system that listens to thought as a cue for expression. When you understand that your mental images speak directly to the creative matrix of life, you cease to beg and begin to orchestrate. The relationship between mind and matter is not one of conflict, but of guidance. You do not overpower nature, you collaborate with her. Just as the sun does not argue with the seed, but warms it into bloom, so your mental pictures invite reality to take shape. A woman who wishes for health cannot plead with her body as if it were a foreign entity. She must speak to it with calm authority, aligning her internal atmosphere with the energy of wellness. When she sees herself walking in strength, speaking in vitality, feeling joy in her very blood, nature begins her quiet work of matching that vision. The analogy of the telephone central office serves well here. Each mind is a branch central, intimately connected to the main power. When a branch needs supplies, it does not cry out into the void. It dials directly into its source. Likewise, your thoughts must be clearly transmitted to the central power that governs all material form. The more consistently and cleanly you transmit your desire, the more swiftly nature aligns. Interference comes from contradictory thought, emotional turbulence, or disbelief. But the undisturbed, focused mind speaks to the core of reality and is heard. Nature does not understand confusion. It obeys clarity. It does not respond to fragmented visions. It responds to coherent pictures, impressed with confidence and carried with inner harmony. When you think of order, you invite order. When you embody peace, your surroundings mirror peace. An engineer building a bridge does not wonder whether steel will respond to design. He trusts the properties of the material and applies them. Likewise, when you trust the responsiveness of nature, you no longer question whether your image will take shape. You simply refine your image and live in expectation. To walk through life, knowing that all form is animated by a creative intelligence that waits on your thought, is not arrogance. It is awakening. Mountains shift not by shouting, but by alignment with the force that moves mountains. That force resides in you. It does not shout back, it listens. The question is not whether nature will respond. The question is whether you will speak with the calm conviction of one who knows they are heard. When you do, nature answers, always and without fail. Every word you speak carries weight far beyond sound. More than syllables or air passed through vocal cords, the word is vibration, a coded current of thought made audible. It is thought in motion, energy in form. When spoken with intention and belief, the word becomes a spark of creation. Just as a tuning fork can shift the resonance of a room, your word alters the frequency of your world. It is the crystallization of an idea, the condensation of invisible thought into a signal that both mind and matter can hear. Consider the sacred traditions of ancient cultures, where the word was seen, not merely as communication, but as invocation. In the beginning, says the scripture, was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This was no metaphor. It was recognition of the principle that all creation begins in vibration, and vibration begins in the word. When you repeat a word like joy or peace with steady concentration, the vibrational signature of that word begins to expand within you. It stirs the dormant cells of your consciousness and pulls reality toward the shape you are giving it. But there is a condition. The word must be undivided. Repeating affirmations while secretly fearing their opposite drains their power. The universe does not respond to the noise in your speech. It responds to the harmony behind it. Speaking the word is not enough. You must inhabit it. You must feel its truth rising from your core, not just falling from your lips. A word spoken in faith is a command. A word spoken in doubt is an echo. When you declare what you desire, let your voice carry the vibration of certainty, not as performance, but as alignment with the truth already forming in the unseen. Every circumstance you experience has been preceded by a word, spoken or unspoken. The conditions of your body, your relationships, your finances are responses to the tone and frequency of your inner dialogue. Whether repeated aloud or silently carved into the stream of your consciousness, your words have shaped your path. To change your world, change your speech. Speak not of limitation, but of abundance, not of sickness, but of life. Every word is a seed. Plant with care, speak with intention, and let the vibration of your language summon into form what your soul already knows is yours. Prayer, when understood through the lens of mental science, is not a plea to some distant force. It is a precise alignment of thought with the principles that govern creation. It is not begging, it is directing. Scientific prayer begins not with want, but with recognition. You begin with the awareness that all you seek already exists in potential form, waiting only for your mind to give it structure. To pray scientifically is to commune with the infinite substance of life, to impress upon it the mold of your clear desire, and to know, truly know, that the form must follow thought as surely as dawn follows night. The key to effective prayer lies in its starting point, assumption. You do not ask for what you lack. You assume what you desire is already yours. This is the essence of the instruction. Ask, believing you have already received. When you think a thought, you initiate creation. The image you hold becomes the seed. The more you dwell in the feeling of its fulfillment, the more it condenses from invisible concept into visible form. Scientific prayer is therefore not confined to words. It is a sustained internal condition, a living alignment with your ideal already realized. To anchor this practice, begin your day in stillness. Rise before the world stirs, when thought is clean and the veil between mind and spirit is thinnest. Sit upright, breathe deliberately. Center yourself in the awareness that divine intelligence fills all space and flows through you. Then speak your affirmation, not out of repetition, but from realization. Affirm not as a hope, but as an announcement. My mind is a center of divine operation, or the best there is mine now. Let these not be statements of aspiration, but declarations of truth. Feel the vibration shift within you as you speak. Once your affirmation is set, allow no inner contradiction to remain. Prayer is not only the planting of intention, it is the clearing of weeds. Examine your emotional soil. Uproot doubt. Pull out resentment. If fear is present, acknowledge it, then release it. Your creative power cannot flow freely through a cluttered channel. Thought is magnetic. What you think and feel together attracts its likeness. Scientific prayer works when the current of thought is uninterrupted, unwavering, and united with feeling. The mind that prays in harmony with divine law becomes a vessel through which spirit manifests new conditions without resistance. Let your prayer end in quiet praise, not because you are flattering a deity, but because gratitude affirms completion. To give thanks before the evidence appears is the final mark of trust. It seals the pattern, it completes the act. Scientific prayer is not magic, it is law applied. Each thought is a blueprint, each affirmation a signal to the unseen architect. When your mind is truly aligned with what is, and your emotion confirms its truth, what you seek begins to move toward you with invisible momentum. The divine responds not to desperation, but to recognition. Pray not for what you want, pray from what you know. Once the mental image is formed, your real task begins, not in creating, but in maintaining. The world will pull, doubt will whisper, and delay may test your endurance. These are not signs of failure, but part of the natural resistance that all creative forces encounter. Just as a seed must break through the soil before it sees the sun, your vision must press through layers of old habits, limiting beliefs, and external conditions before it materializes. The ability to hold your image steadily through uncertainty determines whether your desire remains imagination or becomes experience. Mental images, like photographic film, are sensitive to disruption. Each time you alter your picture, replace it with a conflicting one, or allow discouragement to blur its edges, you weaken the signal sent to the creative field. A scattered mind produces scattered results. Persistence, then, is not about forcing results. It's about loyalty to the vision. The laws of mental creation respond to clarity, not haste. Like a sculptor working on a statue, you must return each day to the same form, smoothing its shape, reinforcing its detail, polishing it with feeling, until no part of you doubts that it already exists in the invisible. Emotion is the adhesive that holds your vision in place. Enthusiasm, joy, and quiet certainty energize your image, keeping it alive. Desperation or fear suffocates it. Just as a flame cannot burn in a vacuum, your mental picture cannot grow in the absence of trust. This is why secrecy can be powerful. When you share your vision too soon, others may project doubt or logic onto your process. Keep your image sacred, nourished in solitude. Speak to it as if it already lives, and treat it not as a wish, but as a seed in bloom. If the image fades, or the world contradicts your inner picture, do not fight. Return instead to the cause, to the center of creation within. Realign, reaffirm, and restore the feeling that your vision is natural, rightful, inevitable. Resistance often peaks before breakthrough. Maintain your position like a lighthouse in storm, unmoved, unwavering, radiant. What you conceive and hold with disciplined thought and unwavering feeling cannot help but draw to itself the means for expression. Your work is not to push against the world, but to sustain the image long enough for the world to catch up. You are not a solitary figure wandering through a chaotic universe. Beneath every thought you hold and every word you speak lies a partnership, an invisible alliance between your individual mind and the infinite creative intelligence that governs all life. This intelligence, often called universal mind or divine substance, is not distant or abstract. It functions through you, waits on your direction, and answers the call of your convictions. To know this is to recognize that mental sovereignty isn't about control over others or outcomes, but about authority within the kingdom of thought. The creative power you employ is not yours in isolation. It is on loan from the infinite. You are the lens, the channel, the instrument through which this formless energy becomes form. When your thoughts align with the higher principles of life, order, harmony, abundance, joy, the universal responds with precision. It is not a question of worthiness or morality. It is a question of correspondence. You do not need to beg for results. You need only understand that the invisible responds to the image impressed upon it, and it does so without favoritism or resistance. Jesus once said, "The Father and I are one, not in superiority, but in unity of essence." That same unity exists between your consciousness and the originating spirit. But this divine inheritance can only manifest to the degree that you accept it. If you see yourself as separate, powerless, or broken, your results will echo that belief. If you walk through life knowing that your mind is a center of divine operation, then your very thoughts carry the weight and intention of creation. Faith, then, is not the hope that something will happen. It is the unshakable knowing that the power doing the work is infinite, and you are its willing conduit. In this partnership, sovereignty is not a burden, it is a gift. The universal mind does not impose, it waits, it watches. And when it finds an individual who thinks deliberately, speaks consciously, and acts with integrity to their highest vision, it flows, it builds, it forms the unseen into the seen. You are not the cause, but you are the director. You don't generate the power, you shape it. And with that recognition, you step into your true role, a sovereign co-creator, shaping reality not by force, but by understanding, alignment, and divine authority. Dominion is not domination. It is not the grasping, clenched fist trying to force reality to bend. Dominion arises when understanding matures, when the individual recognizes the silent laws of thought and aligns action with truth. It is mastery, not over others, but over the self. The one who truly understands their invisible power no longer panics in the presence of opposition, nor do they flinch when appearances contradict their desire. They do not need reassurance from the world, because they know the world is a reflection of their sustained inner conviction. Understanding reveals that thought is not merely a tool, but the blueprint of all conditions. Every circumstance, no matter how fixed it seems, was once fluid in the mind. The law never changes. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Once this principle is grasped, not memorized but realized, the entire fabric of life becomes negotiable. One no longer chases change externally. They create a new inner image and hold it with deliberate calm. The outer world then adjusts, not as a favor, but as a law-obedient echo of the internal shift. This is the secret known to sages, mystics, and masters. Reality is not solid, but impressionable. It does not move by effort, but by alignment. To understand this is to step out of the role of a victim, no longer tossed by winds of fate, no longer limited by past experiences or others' opinions. The creative power flows where attention flows. Keep the thought sustained, energized by feeling, rooted in faith, and expression will follow. Not always instantly, not always predictably, but always lawfully. To live this truth is to become free. Free from waiting, free from fear, free from seeking approval. You begin to see yourself not as someone lacking power, but as the very center through which the infinite expresses. Health, prosperity, peace, all are forms of thought made visible. Hold to the form, trust the process, and keep your thoughts congruent with what you claim to desire. Every day becomes a quiet rehearsal of creation. Each word you speak, a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. Dominion, then, is not a moment of triumph. It is a daily relationship with mental clarity. You don't have to manipulate conditions or plead with forces outside yourself. You simply need to understand what you are, a living channel of universal intelligence, a steward of creative power, a thinker shaping reality through steady, faithful vision. And with this knowing, you walk not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. You speak not to impress, but to direct. You think not to escape the world, but to transform it. Everything you've sought, peace, power, purpose, has always waited in the sanctuary of your own mind. Your invisible power is not a gift granted to a chosen few. It is your birthright. You are already using it every moment with every thought and belief. The difference now is that you understand. With this understanding comes dominion, with dominion, creation, and with creation, the life that once felt beyond reach becomes the life you live, deliberately, confidently, and consciously. You have not merely watched a video, you have returned to an ancient truth. Mental energy is not an idea, it is the invisible force behind every result you experience. Now you know, you hold the key. Use it consciously, consistently, and courageously. Life is not happening to you, you are shaping it from within.